The Miami Dolphins sit at 6-7, fighting for their playoff lives against the 8-5 Houston Texans, who have gone through some speed bumps, but they are also coming off of a bye week, which can pay dividends for teams, especially this late in the season. But let's hope, as Dolphins fans, that is not the case. But I'm here to break it all down. Before I do, check out the DolphinsDive.com for the best Dolphins merch out there, like this Tua shirt. Got Johnny, Tyreek, Waddle, whoever you could want is on the site. A perfect gift for yourself or a family member. Use code YouTube and save 20% off your entire order today. Now, starting with the Miami Dolphins offense versus the Texans defense. The Dolphins come in at 23rd in points per game. Texans defense is 12th in points allowed. So obviously, Texans have a pretty solid defense. In terms of the running game, the Dolphins are 24th in rushing yards per game, and the Texans are 10th in rushing yards allowed. And I know the Dolphins are clearly at a disadvantage in that statistical category, but if you've been following along anything I've been posting on social media, I think the Dolphins have a run game if they stick to their under center I formation rushing attack, but Mike McDaniel tends to abandon it. Now, I don't know why. Is it because the passing game is so efficient? Is it because he doesn't want his running backs getting injured? I'm not sure. If it's the running backs getting injured part, he does have a staple of backs he can use, and when the Dolphins run out of I formation, they have success. And I think if they take that game plan into this game against the Texans, it will work, because the Texans run nickel defense more than anybody in the league. I think it was high 80%. So that means if the Dolphins were to come out in 21 personnel, which is Alec Ingold in the backfield along with a running back and a tight end on the field, which is a run-heavy formation, the Texans' response to that is going to stay into a pass personnel, basically, with keeping two linebackers on the field as well as a nickel corner. So I think the Dolphins should look to take advantage of the Texans wanting to stay in nickel defense and try and run the ball down their throats. And then if they want to get heavier and put more people into the box, you can play action pass, get the ball to Tyreek and Waddle with some space, because they're committing more defenders to stopping the run. So I've been saying this basically all season long. This is the kind of game plan I'd like to see McDaniel use, and I think he did it perfectly against the Bills game, and it hasn't shown up since. So fingers crossed he does it, because yes, Tua has been absolutely balling out, doing a tremendous job playing the position, but when you're passing the ball 40, 50 times, you're just increasing the odds that you're going to put the ball in harm's way. Like, Tua's protected the football tremendously, but every quarterback throws interceptions, and when you're throwing the ball 50 times, you're likely going to put the ball in harm's way. And you're going to see as this video develops, I think the winner of this game is going to come down to which team wins the turnover battle and makes the least amount of mistakes. And the Dolphins tend to self-inflict wounds, and I think the best way to kind of avoid that is to establish this running game. I'd like to see Jeff Wilson get 5 touches. Like, I've been saying it since last season. Whenever Jeff Wilson gets the ball, he runs physical, and he's a spark plug for this offense. So once again, I'd like to see this run game get set up, especially you're talking about a team that's probably preparing to really just try and stop Tyreek and Waddle like every other team tries. And if you come out and try and punch him in the mouth, insert your will, and it bodes well down the stretch. If you beat the Texans with a running attack, you have 3 games remaining, 2 in cold weather, and if you have a running game, that will bode well for you. Now, in terms of the passing game, the Dolphins are 14th in passing yards per game, and the Texans are 7th in passing yards allowed. A big statistic for the Texans, they're 2nd in the league in interceptions. And once again, that is why I'm saying it's so imperative to try and establish this running game, because this Texans pass defense gets their hands on the football, and the more passing attempts you have, the more likely that a defender is going to slip into a window that Tua is throwing to, or a ball gets tipped. We all know the different things that can lead to interceptions, and I think the more you pass, the more likely that will occur. So I think if the Dolphins can establish this running game, obviously you're still going to pass the ball. You have Tyreek, Waddle, and Johnny. Like, there's no reason I'm saying to just run the ball every single play, but I think if you establish it, it bodes well for your entire team. You get those linebackers to start biting more on the run fakes, and it just is best for business.
What's best for business?
Big note about this Texans defense, they're similar to how the Jets are. Tua mentioned it in this press conference as well, but
you got to have your P's and Q's on point when you're dealing with a rush that they have. Very similar structure to the team that we just played, but they don't necessarily play the same way, if that makes sense.
Texans are mainly a single high coverage team, meaning they play a lot of cover 3 zone or a cover 1 man coverage, putting one safety in the middle of the field to range from sideline to sideline. Now, even when teams, that's their main defense, when they play the Dolphins, they tend to change how they play. They put 2 safeties over top and change their game plan. We saw that with the Jets this past week, and even when they ran single high coverage, their corners that were covering Waddle or Tyreek were then playing 10 yards back, giving a ton of room, and that's why you saw so many quick out routes and short developing routes for those guys. So I think if the Texans stay in that single high coverage, you look to take some shots, run some double moves down the sideline and see whichever side the safety picks, and you throw the ball to the other one. I think we've seen what the Dolphins can do with those explosive plays. I think once again, this is going to be a hard-fought matchup, and I think if you can finally get a quick explosive play, like it relieves some of the pressure of having to be perfect for 10 to 15 plays, which is what the Dolphins have had to do this entire season because teams are making them work. So I think if they run a single high coverage and aren't keeping their corners very far back, you look to try and strike quick and get a quick score, whether it's to start the game or kind of to help develop a lead. So if they run single high, try and make them pay, and then if they run cover two or too high shell, it's something they're not the most comfortable with, so hopefully you can look to take advantage of that. So to recap the keys for the offensive side of the football, establish the run. Please, McDaniel, please run out of I formation. I'm telling you, it will help you. Start the game fast because as we've seen, like everyone wants to make, Tua can't beat good teams. Like it's a team sport and it starts with how you start. We lost to the Packers because we muffed the punt and we just started the game as an entire team so poorly. I think if you're able to start fast, you limit that and give yourself a great opportunity to win. Protecting the football, as I've mentioned, I think turnovers will decide this game. So if you can protect the football, you give yourself a good chance of doing that, and then continue to do what you do in the passing game. I have the utmost confidence in Mike McDaniel and Tua in the passing game to get the ball to our great playmakers. Now, players to watch for this Texans defense. They obviously had an injury to Jalen Petrie, which sucks. Will Anderson, obviously Defensive Rookie of the Year, very good player. Denali Hunter has been on an absolute tear for them at the edge position. Derek Stingley, we all know him coming out of LSU, is one of the best corners in all of football. They got a young player in Kamari Lassiter who's been playing very well, but he's still a rookie, so maybe the Dolphins look to maybe take advantage of some rookie mistakes. But this is a good Texans defense that's very well coached by D'Amico Ryans, and the Dolphins are going to have their work cut out for them. But I hope that they establish this run and get after them. Now, in terms of the Texans offense versus the Dolphins defense, the Texans offense is 11th in points per game, and the Dolphins defense is not very far behind, being 14th in points allowed. In terms of the running game, the Texans are 16th in rushing yards per game, and the Dolphins are 7th in rushing yards allowed. I've honestly been saying this entire week, I thought the Dolphins were 9th, so they're even better, being 7th in rushing yards allowed per game, which is very good. Obviously, for the Texans running game, they run a similar offensive system as the Miami Dolphins, coming from the Shanahan trees, Bobby Slowick, who we have his brother on our coaching staff, which is funny. Joe Mixon's a beast. They obviously have success running the football, so I think if you continue to play the run like we have been, we're 7th in the league in rushing defense. Don't change up how you do it. Stop this run game, because if you don't stop the run, they will just take you to Pound Town and really just run you out of the building. Make sure you stop it. I have confidence they will. We have a good defensive front that helps stop this run. But once again, if you let him break an explosive run for 70-yard touchdown or just consistently getting 4 to 5 yards a carry, it's going to be a long day because they'll probably just stick to it because of some of their offensive struggles. Now, in terms of the passing attack, the Texans are 17th in passing yards per game, and the Dolphins are 11th in passing yards allowed. So Dolphins defense has been struggling, but statistically they're not too bad. But they obviously need to bounce back after we got cooked by Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So definitely don't feel too confident with our defense considering what had just happened. But I do have confidence in this unit. Anthony Weaver, I believe in. I think there's just some lumps along the way, and I think he's dealing with some of the lack of pass rush due to being out Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. Although Bradley Chubb may be back. As I'm filming this, I still don't have the most clarity. He was at practice. I saw a video. He looked pretty good. So if we do get Bradley Chubb back, that would be so clutch for the Miami Dolphins. I don't think he's obviously going to be able to play a lot of snaps. But any snaps we can get is better than none. He's good against the run and against the pass. That's the good thing with Bradley Chubb. It's not like you're just getting a pass rusher. You're also getting a guy that can play every down. Although, once again, I don't think he will be able to. But being able to have someone to pair up with Chop Robinson to rush the passer when you just send 4 would be so nice, because that's where the Dolphins have struggled this year, is just getting pressure with their base 4. We have to pressure to try and get after the quarterback, and then that leaves you weak in your coverage. So, and that's where the Dolphins have struggled. Like, the Dolphins will get right at the feet of the quarterback, and then the quarterback will just get it out in time to an empty area. So hopefully we do have Bradley Chubb back and we can take advantage of this weak Texans offensive line. As noted, this Texans offense had some struggles these past few weeks, but coming off of a bye, they could look to catch some fire, kind of simplify their offense and find out what's working for them. Hopefully not. I really hope they don't, but you just never know. They obviously have solid weapons in a good QB and CJ Stroud. But once again, they face some ups and downs. CJ Stroud's put the ball in harm's way more times than not this season compared to last season. So I think it's imperative for Anthony Weaver to try and get after them. Obviously, it starts with stopping the run, and then you can kind of just try to heat him up, confuse him, and make him make a mistake. Because like I mentioned on our offense, I think this is going to come down to which team makes the most turnovers. And if you can get CJ Stroud to throw an interception, that's going to bode very well for this Dolphins team. And one note for the Dolphins, there has just been some poor luck for this defense. I think back to last week, there was 2 very ticky-sacky penalties. There's constantly strip sacks that the arm's just going forward, or the ball gets tipped in the air and something funky happens. Like, we strip Kyler Murray and the ball bounces right back to him. Like, that, it's an excuse, but the Dolphins are getting close to getting a turnover. And I think once they get one, it might start coming. And if we are able to get turnovers, this team, sky's the limit, because our offense is doing very good and they're not even getting additional turnovers from the defense. So I think if we can get some, it's going to play a huge role in being able to win against some of these good teams. So defensive keys obviously starts with create a turnover. Whoever wins this battle will win the game. Once again, with the offense, start fast, because we saw what happened when we didn't against the Packers. Prevent explosive plays. Nico Collins and CJ Stroud have a very good combination of hitting deep plays, so try and prevent that. I'm curious how Anthony Weaver approaches it. Is he going to put Ramsey on him? I think it's the good move to put Ramsey on him. Obviously, we saw Ramsey struggle against Garrett Wilson last week, but I think Nico Collins is a different receiver than Garrett Wilson. Nico's kind of bigger body, and I think that's where Jalen Ramsey matches up well against a bigger body receiver that's not as shifty, and then hold them to threes as much as possible. I respect this offense. They're going to make their plays, but if you can get them in the red zone and hold them to threes instead of sevens, I think that'll make all the difference. So players to watch for this Texans offense. Obviously, QB1 CJ Stroud, Offensive Rookie of the Year, absolutely balled out. Joe Mixon is still that dude. Nico Collins, a bona fide number 1 receiver who's very good. Tank Dell is their other receiver who has made plays down year, but still a very good player. And then Dalton Schultz is kind of their safety valve at tight end that will make plays from time to time. So, prediction time. I am 32-16 in the lifetime of this channel predicting Miami Dolphins games. 9-4 this year. So, pretty good track record. Don't mind if I do. So, my prediction for this game, I'm going to preface it with saying the reason my prediction is what it is. I cannot pick the Miami Dolphins to beat the Texans until they prove they can play team football against these competitive teams. I think the Dolphins are talented enough and well coached enough to beat these teams, but for whatever reason, they just can't put it all together. Whether it's a special teams mistake, the offense can't get going, the defense can't get going, just complementary, they don't play good enough. And I don't know what's the cause exactly, but until they show they can, I can't predict that they will. So my prediction is the Miami Dolphins lose 27-24. I hope I'm very wrong, and I think there's a good chance I am wrong. I really think this is a coin flip game, and it comes down to how the Dolphins show up. Comment your predictions down below. I appreciate everybody for watching. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow, and until next time, fins up.